Okay, listener name. We're diving into residential real estate today, but not the usual should I rent or buy stuff.
Yeah.
You want the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
The forces shaping the whole market.
Exactly. And that starts with the land itself, the foundation. You understand the land, you unlock everything else. Housing, investment, you name it, even those big economic shifts you're following.
Okay, I like where this is going. And to help us unpack it all, we've got this article from Walton Global.
Great choice. They're major players in land investment, so yeah, their perspective is really valuable here.
Their take is pretty interesting. They call 2024, you ready for this, a year of significant transformation in residential real estate.
Big words.
hmm
But they back it up. Right off the bat, they're highlighting undeveloped land as like this surprisingly strong investment. And that caught my eye given the market's been a bit wobbly, so what gives?
Right, like everything's been so uncertain.
And that's the point. Smart money's thinking long game. They're not phased by the short-term stuff. Land. Land is the ultimate tangible asset.
They're not making any more of it, right?
Exactly. And Walton Global knows this. They excel at taking that raw land and making it, as they call it, oven-ready for home builders.
Oven-ready land. Okay,
Yeah.
but hold on. Before we get to that, let's talk about this housing shortage. The article keeps mentioning it. Feels like the sequel to 2008 we all didn't want.
And yet, here we are. It's a sequel with a hefty price tag, too. This isn't just like a theoretical thing. The article cites a 2.5 million home deficit in the U.S. alone. 2.5 million, think about it. That's pushing prices through the roof, impacting affordability for everyone.
So you've got this huge demand, limited supply, and this massive housing shortage on top of it. Recipe for, well, continued high prices, right?
A recipe for innovation, too. The article talks about things like, get this, 3D printed homes and modular construction. They're presenting them as potential solutions to these challenges.
Hold on. 3D printed houses. Are we talking like the Jetsons here? Is that really viable?
It's more than a sci-fi fantasy now. Big home builders, D.R. Horton, Lennar, they're taking it seriously. They're looking at it to, like, tackle labor shortages and rising costs in construction.
So less hammers and nails, more robots and algorithms. I can't even picture that. But seriously, what are the hurdles to making this go mainstream?
Well, for one, you got to scale the technology, bring costs down, and frankly, just get people comfortable with the idea of living in a 3D printed house.
Right. It's one thing to build it, another to convince people to, actually live in it. But I get the potential, given all the issues with traditional construction.
Definitely. And then there's modular construction. It's been around, but it's having a moment. Imagine building a house, like assembling furniture, prefabricated pieces put together on site.
So it's all about efficiency, speed, maybe saving some money. But is that all? Does the article suggest it's also about design or quality in ways traditional building might struggle with?
Yeah. You've hit on it. With modular, you've got this controlled factory setting. That means better quality control, more precision. You minimize those on-site errors, those weather delays. It's a different approach that's gaining traction.
Interesting. So we've got these cool new technologies, right, trying to shake things up. But even with that, we're still facing this massive housing shortage. What happens to those who just can't afford to buy in this environment? Is renting the only option?
It's definitely a huge factor. You're talking about a major trend, build to rent BTR. And, you understand interest rates better than anyone.
Yeah. Where are you going with this?
The article points out this fascinating dynamic. Even the BTR market, renting, it's feeling the squeeze from those interest rate hikes.
Because renting isn't immune to the bigger economic picture.
Exactly. So if buying is tough and renting's getting tougher, where does that leave people? Well, the article hints at some interesting migration patterns.
Oh, like where are people going?
Walton Global, they're putting their money, along with other big investors, in places like Delaware, Alabama.
Yes, no, those are not the usual suspects. What's the draw?
Think about it. Remote work, cost of living, the whole quality of life thing. The pandemic made people rethink where they wanted to live, not just how.
It's like we're watching a whole new map of opportunity being drawn.
And savvy investors are studying it closely. They're realizing it's not just about what we build, it's where. And places like Delaware, Alabama, they offer that lower cost of living, a different pace of life, a whole new set of possibilities.
It's amazing how all these threads, the shortage, the new tech, people moving around, it's all reshaping real estate.
It really is. And that's why understanding these nuances is so important. Take investing in land. It's not just about buying any old plot. The article distinguishes between raw land and what Walton Global focuses on, pre-developed land.
Okay, break that down for me. What's the difference and why should we care?
Think of raw land like, I don't know, a puzzle, but with missing pieces. It's got potential, but you can't just build on it. You need approvals, infrastructure, utilities. All those pieces have to be in place.
So it's like, what? Buying a classic car that needs a lot of work.
Perfect analogy. Now, pre-developed land, that's Walton Global's specialty. They've done all that legwork, put the pieces together, streamline the path for home builders.
So they're like the expert mechanics who take that vintage car, get it all tuned up, ready to roll. And I'm guessing that kind of convenience, it doesn't come cheap. What's the price difference we're talking about here?
You're paying for peace of mind. Pre-developed land, it often comes with a significantly higher price tag. But for those home builders under pressure, facing all those regulations, that premium represents lower risk, faster turnaround.
They're paying to avoid the headaches. Makes sense. But where does Walton Global even find all this land? Are they just, like, conjuring it up?
No magic tricks here, just strategy. They're targeting areas ripe for growth, the Delawares, the Alabamas we talked about, and they often buy these huge tracts of land all at once.
So they're thinking big picture, scooping up land now,
Yeah.
anticipating that future demand.
Exactly, and that's where their size gives them an edge. They've got the resources to make those long-term plays, ride out the market's ups and downs.
That is a powerful position to be in for sure. But it makes you wonder about the folks already living in these places that are suddenly investment hotspots. What happens to them?
That's the big question, right? It's why we have to look at the social impact of all this. Because
Wow.
sure, these trends can be good for the economy, but those benefits need to be shared. We don't want to see people pushed out of their own communities.
It's about progress, yeah. But responsible progress? Everyone benefits, not just those with the deepest pockets.
Couldn't agree more. And it goes back to what we were saying about land being finite. As the demand grows, so does the need for development, investment, but it's got to be done responsibly.
Absolutely. So for those of us listening who aren't, real estate tycoons, what does this all mean? How do we connect these big trends to our own lives, our own decisions?
And that's what makes it so fascinating. See, we're all part of this ecosystem. Whether you're buying, renting, or just living in a community, these trends touch everyone.
Okay, I like that. Ecosystem. Explain that a bit more.
It's all connected. The choices investors make, the things developers do, even what policymakers decide. It all ripples out. It affects everything from housing costs to jobs, even the character of our neighborhoods.
So even if we're not directly involved in buying land,
Yeah.
we're still part of this bigger story.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to stay informed, to understand these trends and, to speak up about responsible development. Because your choices, where you live, how you vote, it all adds up.
It's about seeing the bigger picture and realizing we all have a role to play in shaping our communities,
Exactly. Real estate, it's not just about, bricks and mortar. It's about people, their lives, their dreams, how they connect to a place.
It's about understanding that where we live shapes who we are. And who we are shapes places we call home.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And looking ahead, understanding this stuff becomes even more important because the choices we make today, they don't just disappear, they affect generations to come.
No doubt about it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways? What do we want our listeners to remember?
I think the big one is this: real estate. It's more than just an investment. It's a reflection of our values, our priorities, what we want our world to look like.
It's about more than just making a buck. It's about building communities, a future we can all feel good about.
Couldn't agree more. And that means looking beyond the bottom line, considering the impact of our choices on people, on the planet, and working together to build a future that's sustainable, equitable for everyone.
I love that.
Mhm.
Speaking of the future, this whole conversation, it got me thinking about something. We talk about this huge demand for housing, right? But what about the planet? Can we actually keep building and expanding this way and make it sustainable?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Gets lost sometimes, I think. We focus on the need for more housing, more development, but there's a real environmental cost, habitat loss, resources. These aren't future problems. They're happening right now.
It's like we're solving one problem and creating another one down the line. Does this Walton Global article even touch on that?
It's interesting. Their focus is definitely on the investment side, but they do talk about sustainable development, which I think is encouraging.
So they see that shift happening too.
Oh, absolutely. Green building practices are becoming huge. Renewable energy, responsible land management. Investors are realizing sustainability is good business, not just like a moral thing.
So it's not just how many houses we build, but how we build them.
Exactly. And choosing the right locations, the right type of development. It's about asking ourselves the tough questions. Can we meet our needs now without, messing it up for future generations?
Which I guess goes beyond individual buildings, right? We're talking about
Mhm.
infrastructure, transportation, designing entire communities with sustainability in mind.
You got it. And that takes a real shift in mindset, away from just pure economics to one that values people and the planet.
And that's where I think being informed is so important.
Mm.
If we get it, if we understand these issues, we can demand better choices
Yeah.
from our leaders, from businesses, everyone.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Mhm.
The more we understand about, how housing works, how development happens, the environmental impact, the better equipped we are to create change.
So for everyone listening, as you make your own real estate decisions, remember, it's bigger than just getting a good deal. It's about understanding the whole picture, asking those tough questions, being part of the solution.
Well said. At the end of the day, we're all in this together, right? The choices we make today about land, about housing, about where we invest, those ripples are going to be felt for generations.
Wow, that's a powerful thought.
Mm.
We really did cover a lot of ground today, huh? I feel like we went from the basics of buying and selling to these big ethical questions,
Mm.
even the future of how we live. This deep dive has been pretty eye-opening.
It really has. It just goes to show sometimes the most interesting journeys start with a simple question, A little curiosity, a willingness to dig a little deeper.
Absolutely. To everyone listening, keep asking those questions, keep digging deeper, and keep an open mind. You never know what you might discover. Until next time, listener name, happy exploring.